Good afternoon. Today is January 27th, and it is the 17th day of the 2023 legislative session. This week saw a lot of action at the state capitol, including action on some very important bills in which the West Virginia Chamber is heavily engaged. The first of those bills that I want to talk to you about today is House Bill 2584, and that passed the House Health Committee on Tuesday afternoon. Here's what's going on. In West Virginia, for the past few years, thanks to COVID funding, child care centers that have children enrolled with state-provided funds have been receiving their reimbursement based on enrollment rather than attendance. This has been very helpful as child care is very expensive, including for the centers who host the child care facilities. Prior to that, the finances that came into those centers was based on attendance. So those child care facilities have had to hold spots open for children, but if they didn't show up, they didn't get reimbursed for it. Again, thanks to COVID funding, that changed towards enrollment. This bill would also make that change permanent and make it an enrollment-based reimbursement system going forward with some performance criteria in place that would basically be ensuring that the child care facility is meeting certain metrics as far as staff development, professional development, receiving good safety marks, and so forth. We were very excited to see this bill pass the House Health Committee. It is now on its way to the House Finance Committee, but it's something that has received a lot of discussion recently. Also on the child care front, the West Virginia Chamber is going to be introducing legislation next week that would expand Senate Bill 656, which was last year's child care bill. There are a lot of employers in West Virginia who have been providing child care for their employees and hosting child care facilities. And so we want to make sure that the tax credit that was passed last year would also be able to in some way apply to those employers who've already had daycare facilities. We're also going to be working with the House Economic Development Committee, which has had new child care legislation coming out as well. So a lot of discussion on that very important subject. We're very excited. We've been engaged in this conversation, and this has been something that's needed to happen for a long time, and it finally is. Another bill that passed this week at the Senate Economic Development Committee, and that passed on Wednesday, was Senate Bill 188. This is a very important bill. It's a bill that's been chiefly sponsored by the Manufacturers Association and the natural gas industry, but heavily supported by the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Here's what this bill does. It would speed up the permitting process for natural gas generation, and it would also direct the Secretary of Economic Development to find sites in West Virginia that would be suitable for the building of natural gas power plants. We have lost in West Virginia 3 major natural gas power plant projects: Brooke County Power, Moundsville Power, and Harrison County Power. Those were 3 proposed natural gas power plants that were tied up in the court system, took too long through the permitting process, and eventually the investors fell off. There are 0 combined cycle natural gas power plants in West Virginia, and we're one of the largest gas producers in the entire country. Next door in Ohio, they have 13 of these plants. In Pennsylvania, just north of us, they have 26. They are building these plants left and right in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and these plants would not sell to West Virginia customers, but would sell instead directly to the PJM grid. They are going to build these plants regardless. Our view is we would like them to start building some in West Virginia so that we get the tax benefits, we get the jobs that they would create, and the economic development that would spur off these natural gas generation facilities. So that bill passed the Senate Economic Development Committee. It is poised to pass the West Virginia Senate next week, and then it'll move over to the House of Delegates. So we have been champions of this bill, along with our partners in the natural gas industry and the West Virginia Manufacturers Association. So we're very excited to see the progress that's been happening. I'm going to check back in with you again next week to talk about some other things that are happening, but those were a couple of the really important bills that I wanted to bring to your attention for this week. Again, thank you so much for your continued support of the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. And as always, if you ever have questions or anything, feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you.